2024 is going to end with a bang. It's going to end with a new timeline. The timeline that we're currently on, we're either going to see an upgrade of it or a degrade of it. It really is one of those two choices. The timeline that we're on right now is in the process of dissolving. This will happen a few times before we get to ascension, so it's not that weird. But let me tell you what is kind of, well, not really weird, but just such an anomaly of an experience, and that is where we're at right now in the timeline. The timeline that we're on is a convergence point where all parallels, pasts, presents, futures, all happen to come into this one melting pot. That's where we are right now. So if you and I saw this timeline and we were somehow hovering above it, looking at the human timeline, which used to be a whole lot of different timelines, right? That's why we used to say things like, oh, in my timeline this and in your timeline that, because we could be in these different experiences. Sometimes if timelines were kind of in a similar bandwidth, we could even pitch up in the same room as each other. But if those timelines were too distinct in frequency, we'd never even meet. Now, my gardeners, oh God, love them, but they're making a noise. And it's actually not even mine. My neighbor's garden service is on duty right now, just as I sit down to record a video. So if you hear any kind of in the background, I'm hearing it a lot louder than you, but it's there. So let's just take the moment. So we've got one melting pot of a timeline. There's you and me looking at the timeline, elbowing each other, going, oh my God, it looks like that thing's gonna blow, because that's what it's doing. It's wah, 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 containing all possibilities. It's a crazy place to live, and it means that brushing up against your skin is this opposite and that opposite, which means you're going to feel like there's so many divergent views to where you are. You just wish that people could see your point of view. They can't, because there's too many points of view right now. It's only at the ascension point, that's the point that we call the solar flash, the micronova. We've got all these different names to describe the point of ascension. At that ascension point, that's the time when finally our timeline purifies into one cohesive 5D timeline. The reason it's like this right now is because prior to any ascension, all timelines have to, so this is, you know, it's an abnormally normal process. All timelines have to converge prior to the ascension process. Also because if they didn't, can you imagine how easy it would be for the archons, who are the engineers of the false matrix, who have been manipulating reality for so long, to continue to manipulate if we break off into strands being different timelines? So get the visual, huh? It's kind of like you're at a train station, all the different trains, that's the different timelines we used to be on. That would be too easy to manipulate. At the convergence point, as uncomfortable as it is, everything's in a sense in the same room, so it's easier to coordinate ascension. Ascension is that 5D purification, and it's there at that point where all of the lower timelines finally dissolve. It's there at that ascension point where all of the lower timelines finally can only express themselves as one 5D timeline. Before we get there, though, there's a lot going on. Like right now. Right now, our timeline is in the process of upgrading. So organically, naturally, that's what's going to happen if there's no intervention. But of course, we've lived in a false matrix for so long. The false matrix itself is a place of intervention. The false matrix itself is a highly manipulated reality. So what we've got are the archonic ones attempting to, and it's a very desperate attempt, to gain control of the timeline again. I'm going to explain to you what that degraded timeline is going to look like, but I want you to see the upgraded timeline too, so that you can put your focus where it belongs, so that you can put your creative energy where it belongs. We're also going to talk about how many people does it take to shift a timeline. We're going to talk about what happens if we get it wrong. What happens if we fail, because it's okay if we do. Just spoiler alert, we failed many times before. We've had multiple failed ascension events, attempts. And that's okay. You know, every time we come close to something and don't quite get it, falls apart right as we're within reach of it, we learn, we grow, we evolve. So the potential of a degraded timeline coming in exists. And I got to tell you, both of those timelines, man, they're so ripe. There's no other word. They're ready and they're ripe and they're waiting to go. They're both already exist. It's just about which one we're going to empower. Who runs a timeline? Whoever holds not necessarily the highest frequency, whoever holds the dominant frequency. So is there more of the frequency of light, more of the frequency of dark, and is the dark darker than the light? If we could look at a scale, right? Where's the light operating at? Where's the dark operating at? These are the things that determine who runs the timeline. So for a long time now, when I say a long time, maybe 2 years, the light workers have been running our timeline. I think it's actually less than 2 years. You guys, me and time, we're weird with each other. I don't always remember time in a very sequential way, but nonetheless, the light workers have been steering the timeline. I know it doesn't look that way. It looks like no one's steering, but really, the timeline has got coordinators. They're called the light workers, who encompasses starseeds, spiritual warriors, the chosen, beings of consciousness. So that is people who are working with light, people who are evolving. That's what light is. Light is the expansion of consciousness. So as a soul, so imagine that all the light workers are an oversoul. As a soul group, the light workers have coordinated to steer reality. But let me let you in on a secret. We don't know what we're doing. I know you knew that, right? But we have no idea what we're doing. And that's part of why it's working out so well. Let me explain this. Because we don't have a plan. All we have is the current moment. By the way, you're going to see my lighting change a lot because the sun, that's my studio lighting. My studio lighting is the sun. The sun's going in and out of clouds right now. Anyway, the amazing part of not knowing what we're doing is that we can't be predicted. The way that all of the previous timelines were, so that means think of the past, the train station being all of the different timelines, right? Nice visual to have. All of those trains were computed, predictable. This timeline's going to go here. This timeline's going to go there. And the prediction of those malevolent quantum computing alliances that were working with the archons was to predict, where's that timeline going to go? At what point does it ascend? Let's put in a fear event there. Insert World War I, insert the Cold War, insert all of these captivating fear response events in order to derail humanity's shift in consciousness. So they're wanting to do exactly the same thing right now, but they can't because the light workers are operating in the unknown. The light workers are operating moment by moment, which is beautiful because it actually is helping us to move out of the confines of the false matrix, which is also called a time matrix. We're actually beginning to create outside of time now. So at that point, we're so unpredictable. At that point, we really are operating in potential, which is a very, very big shift for us. It's a big breakthrough. It's a great thing to be operating in raw potential, but it means you're very creative. Like we've always been creative, but you're a lot more creative than you ever realized. So be warned, be wise that the things that you're focusing on right now, you're bringing a tremendous creative power to, and you're bringing a tremendous instant creative power to as well. It's like your creative power is amplified because of where we're working right now. It's just a little something to be aware of. So we're understanding a little bit more about a timeline. We're understanding that we're on one timeline right now that hosts all the frequencies, all the realities. There is no more your timeline and my timeline. There is only our timeline. I'm going to experience it maybe differently to you. I'm going to react to it in a different way maybe than another person would. However, it still remains one crazy, beautiful timeline that we're on. The light workers are in charge of it, in control of it. The archons are rising up to attempt a hijacking, attempt a takeover of the timeline. They will probably do this a couple times before ascension. Can't blame them, you guys. They're losing out on the empire that they built. They're watching it crumble right before their eyes. They're literally fighting for their survival because we are their fuel source. We are their food. We are, and when I say we, I should be more specific, our misery and our suffering is the fuel that feeds them. It's the energy that they feed off of. So if they insert a fear event into reality, at the very, very least, what they get is like a replenishment of food, a replenishment of fuel source. So we really have to learn to be less reactive with our outrage. I keep telling you guys, your outrage changes nothing. And then invariably in the comments, people want to argue about that. And they go, they're outraged that I say don't be outraged, because they go, oh, what about all of these travesties? You want me just to not do anything about it? No, I want you to do something about it, but not to join the outrage. I want you to join peace. I want you to gain inner unification, inner sanctuary, etc., because that's how we shift the world. We don't shift, for example, war by going to war with the warmongers. We shift a reality of war by going into peace. This is what we need to learn so that we can start operating at a higher level right now. So the degraded timeline, you guys, what's that about? The degraded timeline obviously has a fear event, because that's what captures a timeline. Big fear event, big distraction, fake alien invasion, health crisis, numerous episodes. What they would all be designed to do would be to metaphorically put humanity in a cage. Let me explain what I mean by that. Think of what happened in 2020. Humanity was told, big health crisis, don't go outside, stay in your house. What was that? That was putting humanity into a metaphoric prison. And for some, not so metaphoric, but nonetheless, putting humanity into a cage of sorts. Kind of like saying, hey, you've been a bad boy, you've been a bad girl, you're rising up too high, you're getting too big for your britches. Go, let me shut you down, let me shut you away, let me put you away. So fear event with the purpose of putting humanity back into a prison-like mentality, because that's what the false matrix is. The false matrix is a mental realm, and it is an imprisonment and an enslavement into the mental realm, therefore the inability to connect with the totality of who we are as cosmic beings. Now, with the light workers being in charge of the timeline, we can laugh and go, nobody knows what we're doing, and absolutely true. I want you to also please bear in mind that we're bringing in light we don't even understand. We're bringing in consciousness we don't even understand how it works. But when we bring light in at the level that we're working at, it is also going to bring up all the lies, all the corruption, all the untruth. As we bring in truth, the untruth kind of has to come up. Imagine it like a volcano. So truth comes up. That's what we're doing right now. Truth comes up, and then all the lies come up almost like this effervescence that dissolves as it comes to the surface. Don't go into the discharge of the lies and start picking them apart. This is so important, because the degraded reality needs you to do that. It needs you to get fixated on all the lies so that you get fixed to all of the lies. The moment that happens, you're back in where they want you. You're back in the false matrix. So fear event, degraded reality, right? There's a fear event, but also there is distraction that looks like revelation. Is there to mimic revelation. What do I mean by that? Look at what's happening at the moment with P. Diddy. It's a little bit of an Epstein scenario all over again. We've got so many points of distraction. What's Trump doing? What's Trump gonna do? What's P. Diddy done, right? What did Diddy did? What did Diddy do? We've got all of these distraction points going on the planet right now, and all of them are set up to look like a revelation of something, so that we can give our power away to the media to tell us what reality is, to tell us the truth. Hey, media, you must tell me the truth. What are we doing when we do that? We're just changing the facade, changing the face of the false matrix, but living in the same place. So many people want disclosure, you guys, and they don't realize how easy to manipulate that would be. Just feed humanity a story, get a couple of fall guys in, tell humanity it was all their fault. Boom, there you go. Now we're going to think, hey, we've just had disclosure. Disclosure doesn't exist in the degraded timeline that is set up to look like disclosure is happening. It's set up to look like revelations are coming, but in fact, they're just distractions and a means to capture your attention. When your attention is captured, where are you? You're in a jail cell again. When your attention is captured, you're probably going to go into outrage again. I mean, the degraded reality, you guys, it's the kind of reality where things are going to be publicized that certain celebrities have done, very evil things. People are going to be vomiting in the streets because it's so disgusting. And then there's going to be those who mistakenly believe, now we can get justice. Now we can have peace. Now disclosure's happened. No, now distraction will have happened, because disclosure, which is also revelation. I want you to see those two words actually as the same thing. True disclosure or true revelation is you disclosing your cosmic nature to yourself. It's you seeing your actual magnificence, and you cannot see it without connecting to it. We've lived in a reality where we've been devoid of connection to self. And in place of connection to self, we've had connection to external authority. The upgraded reality, the upgraded timeline, puts each light worker into a position of upgraded connection to self. This is going to come in the form of a deeper awakening event. It could be a 10-second event, so look out for it, you guys. And I'm talking about, like, you could be sitting on the bus on the way to work and just, you have what I call a lights in the sky moment, meaning you think, what, out-of-body experience, a bliss experience, what just happened? You will be forever changed by a few seconds of light being inserted into your personal timeline. That is your personal soul interacting with you, bringing in a boost of light. It could be in a dream. I described 10 seconds on the bus, whatever. It could be a dream, could be bend down to tie your shoelaces, just a moment where it feels like time stops. The lights in the sky moment, you're awestruck and you're totally transcendent for just a brief little moment. That's going to live inside and echo inside your field forever, because that's the nature of light. Light ripples, ripples, ripples. In fact, let's talk a little bit more about the ripple. The way that reality works right now, because I know a question is going to be how many people is it going to take to shift into the elevator timeline, which is the timeline that we're currently walking on, but lighter. It has this awakening event woven into it. It is where the media can say whatever distraction stuff it's going to say, and you're going to be like, meh, sorry, I'm too captivated. Figuring out what it is to be centered inside myself. Look at how we were so purposefully ushered away from being self-centered. No, you must be centered within yourself, because if you're not, then you're not stable. If you're not centered within self, and I'm talking about the true self, the core essence of you, you are going to then be in the prison of the false matrix. You're then going to be centered into all the external authorities, bleeding your power into them. In the upgraded timeline, it's still you, it's still me, it's still reality as we know it to be today, but it's an upgraded version, which means it's much harder to shift the front runners. It's much harder because those are the guys that provide the stability, the front runners of the light working community. Imagine it like this. Imagine there's 100 in the front. I'm just giving you a figure. There's actually a reason why I'm giving you this figure, but I'll tell you later. Imagine there's 100 people front running, and the incoming energy, the upgrade timeline, the energy of it hits them first. They integrate it. They embody, because that's what they're really adept at doing. They then ripple that into, let's just say, the next 1,000 behind them. They integrate. Now, the ripple is going to get lesser each time, but that's perfect, because then it's more calibrated to each group of people that it hits. Then behind them, there's, let's just say, 10,000 people. Let's just say the next group is 100. Let's just say the next group is 1,000,000. Every time it ripples, it gets closer and closer to rippling into the mass of humanity. I've just described to you not just how the ripple works, but how many people it takes to shift reality. The 100 that I spoke about was actually not just a random figure. If there were 100 beings on planet Earth right now, I just want you to know this. I'm not saying we have to do this. I just want you to know this. If there were 100 Christ-like beings on the planet right now, that would be enough to guarantee our place of that upgraded timeline. One Christed being, and please note I'm not talking about the religion, because so much untruth was woven into what was once a story of pure love, what was once a story of pure beauty. That story itself obviously became a false matrix story. It became hijacked. So that's okay. The point is to know that one Christed being left a reverberant echo that 2,000 years later, we still are aware of the impact of that. What if there were 100 Christ-like beings on the planet? And by Christ-like, I mean unconditionally loving, unconditionally forgiving, unconditionally connected to the divine, to God. Just 100. They would then be the ripple for the 1,000. And they would then ripple a slightly diluted ripple from them to the next, because the next would be able to absorb only a slightly lesser version, which is great because that's what they'd be able to accommodate. And so it would go back, until eventually we've got an upgrade. So what I'm saying to you is, don't think that we need millions and millions and millions of people on the planet. We really don't. It's not about the numbers, like how many people do we have? How many people, roll call, how many light workers do we have? The truth is we have millions. The problem with those millions is that a lot of them keep falling asleep again. Awake, oh, asleep, awake, oh, yawn, asleep again. So we just need either 100 operating at that level, or even 1,000,000 operating at a heightened level of love. It is not about how many people do this, it's about how intensely they do it. It's about the integrity and authenticity, because that's the Christed path, by the way. It's integrity and authenticity that lays the pathway, the golden pathway of love. That means it's really within our grasp. But what if we fail? What if we have every good intention, we're going to move into the upgraded timeline, but it doesn't happen? We get the lower timeline instead. So instead now of having a revelation, which is disclosure of self to self, connection to the cosmic being, the inner process, instead of having that, which elevates the whole timeline and shifts us closer to ascension, because that's what it would do, we then become fixated on and fixed to all of the low density stuff that appears to be revelation, but is really just distraction. It would probably take us about 3 years. I know. So instead of the upgraded timeline then coming in towards the end of 2024 into 2025, we'd then bring it in 2027, you guys. Which, look, we're operating in the realm of the unknown. So what I can say to you is, based on the known, it would be 3 years, because that's how much work, repair work, it would be. When we operate in the quantum, I don't know, maybe the 3 years could become 18 months, maybe it could become 3 days. I literally don't know, but I suppose anything's possible, right? But it would take, based on what we know and how we've operated in the past, it would take about 3 years to regather ourselves and be prepared then to shift into an upgraded timeline. So we'll do it anyway. It's really just about when, and it's also about, will we allow the interference in? Will we see this degraded timeline take place? Now, there's a video that I released fairly recently here on YouTube. Did really badly. Not a lot of people watched it. I'm asking you to watch it, not because it did badly. The reason it did badly is because it's not sensational. The reason it did badly is because it's not about the external world. It's about your internal world. I want that to get your attention. The video, sure, but you, like your internal world, I want that to become where you focus. When that's your priority, we've shifted timelines. We're still operating with knee-jerk response to the power that other people have to control a timeline and to coordinate reality instead of our own power. I want you to shift into that though. So the video that I put up was called Deep Energy Work. I'll link it in the video description box below. Go and do that deep energy work. You might want to save it for a time when I think it's about 20 minutes long. So like save it for when you've got 20 minutes to just, it's very meditative. So don't operate heavy machinery while doing that video, okay? Treat it as a meditation. You're just going to be listening to me, but you're going to feel your energy being activated while you listen. Kind of, you guys, kind of like right now, where I say to you from my heart, all the way into yours, so much love. Yeah, you can do this. You can let it in. You can feel it. You can be activated by it. Oh, 10 seconds. Do you see how we can just bring ourselves into heightened states of consciousness in a tiny time frame? The heightened states of consciousness ripple the furthest, the longest, the deepest, the widest. Take it right into your heart, because that's where love belongs. It's also where you belong. Right, you guys, speak to me in the comments below. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do. Obviously, it just helps more people get to see the content. Drop me a like, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.